It's time to speak truth in the midst of chaos, to discern fact from fiction in a world of agendas. To take control of your thoughts, define the truth, and live a life set free. It is time for counseling beyond the couch.
Happy Friday, Heather.
Happy Friday, Jenny.
And happy Friday, everyone else. Welcome to Awaken 360's Counseling Beyond the Couch with Heather Freeman, licensed professional counselor, trauma-informed CBT therapist, and founder and director of our Awaken 360, along with myself, Jenny Sotai, with over 20 years experience in professional nursing, including psychiatric placements. Please remember, this show is not a substitute for counseling, but it is a great addition to it. I'm excited about this morning's show, Heather.
Me too. It's a special one.
So today's show is brought to you by Awaken 360. Awaken 360 is a nonprofit trauma counseling center located in Springfield, Missouri, with a mission to restore hope and empower the community through psychoeducation, groups, specialized trauma counseling, and community partnership. Get started at awaken360.org or call 417-889-5483 to get connected with a professional today. So let me give you a little preview of our show today. Today is a special show. We are going to pay homage to our country's 250th anniversary today.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, Heather's going to teach us a lot today. I love learning from Heather. So we're going to start with the reframe. Welcome to the reframe. It's a Berean breakdown. It's a practical, bite-sized look at cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as CBT. Translating simple psychological concepts into everyday strategies for managing thoughts, shifting perspectives, and building healthier habits. Life can feel overwhelming, but you don't have to face it alone. Midwest Psychiatric Associates in Springfield provides compassionate, supportive, solution-focused care with psychiatric evaluations and thoughtful medication management tailored to your needs. We listen, we take time to understand your story, and we support all people without judgment or criticism. An in-person or online visit is available, and you can start with a free 15-minute consultation. Just give psychiatrichealth.com a visit, or you can call 417-262-6609. And this reframe, a Berean breakdown, is brought to you by Midwest Psychiatric Associates.
I have to do a special shout out because I know the person who's starting this organization and they are phenomenal. I worked with them for several years side by side with a pretty tough population in inpatient, and I got to watch this person really just sparkle and give such time and such consideration to the needs of his clients. So if you are looking for medication management, I know there are massive wait lists out there. I know my practice, we have a hard time knowing exactly where to send people who are needing medication management because we don't provide that ourselves. And so being able to have this resource for our clients, I'm so excited about. I've already got his flyer up in our office. All of our colleagues know that if any of our clients need to go somewhere good, we can really vouch for this person who's starting this organization. So I really want to speak out highly of this organization, of the person who's starting it. Be sure to hit up Midwest Psychiatric Associates in Springfield because they will take very good care of you. And they look at the solutions first. They're really trying to find something that's going to work for you and not just push medication.
And as an advocate, I would say this is very exciting.
Yes.
Because, there are huge wait lists. Mm-hmm. You end up seeing providers that maybe don't have your best interest in the way this guy does. Yeah. I would say. I don't know a better way to say that. Sure. I'm not trying to... degrade anyone else.
Yeah.
But as an advocate for the last 30 years of my life, mm-hmm. resources are hard to find.
Good ones, for sure.
And good ones are even harder.
Yeah. So Midwest Psychiatric Associates, that 15-minute consultation will be huge. But today I'm so excited to sing Happy Birthday. No, I'm not singing Happy Birthday on the air.
We're going to have to put Heather on off of talk radio and onto music radio if she continues to sing.
Right. But today we're going to celebrate our country's 250th, which is insane. But I think it's so cool to learn that America's story didn't start in 1776. I know that's the big date that's out there, but that's not where it all began.
Of course.
And I know for me, when I look back in history and I think about how they got all this started, I think of it as, I think most of the time how we often do is we view it as just coming together nice and smoothly. And then, okay, here's the declaration. We're going to go to war. we're going to fight against England, we're going to lose a couple battles, they're going to lose a couple battles, but then in the end we're going to win, and then we're going to write this Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and ta-da, we've got America. But,
and it's all going to happen very quickly.
Right. Movie, 2.5 hours. So,
I'm planning a huge event at my home, and it has taken weeks to prepare for. So I think often in situations like that, we forget all the preparation and stuff that went into it beforehand.
Yeah. So I want to bring the idea of freedom having started so much longer before that. It began with the idea of freedom, the freedom to be, the freedom to live, the freedom to worship according to a person's personal beliefs. The idea that one can be who they set out to be. You can achieve what you want through the effort of your own will and the sweat from your own brow, determining to be defined by your choices and not by a name or a station. It began on November 11th in 1620, when those who were aboard the Mayflower, having come to America for different and various reasons, pursuing different ideals, agreed by mutual consent to a simple set of rules that all the individuals promised to adhere to, agreeing that all laws should be equal applied, they were just and equal for the general good of the entire group, and that the people should govern themselves and would maintain obedience to the framework of the government they created. Freedom in America began in July of 1775, when our founding fathers wrote the Olive Branch Petition. It was a final and desperate plea amongst a world and a country that was divided on whether to remain loyalists to King George or to continue pursuing a revolution and declare our freedom against England. But our founding fathers wrote the Olive Branch Petition. It was their final plea, asking the king to hear their grievances to prevent all-out war. I don't think many of us realize that our founding fathers didn't necessarily want to go to war. They wanted freedom. They wanted to be able to have equal citizenship with the other Englishmen from where they had originated, but they didn't necessarily want to go to war. They didn't necessarily want to revolt against England, but they saw it as a necessary step if they were not going to have their grievances met or heard. And May 17th, 1776, this was such a pivotal plea for them that they had organized a national day of fasting and prayer, seeking God for guidance for what they saw was an impending war that they could not avoid. Because when they sent that olive branch petition to the king, he never once opened it. He refused to read it. He refused to hear it. And he answered their plea and he answered their petition by hiring over 30,000 foreign mercenaries out of Germany to come to the colonies and bring us to heel, and said unequivocally that we would not have our grievances heard. And it was at that point that our founding fathers were able to come to the recognition that even the people that had said, stay loyal to the king, hold out hope, that at this point the evidence was so unanimous and against that idea that he was ever going to hear their argument. And so on March 23rd in 1775, when they were still debating, some people were still holding out hope, wanting to avoid the war, wanting to avoid getting in the fight for revolution, Patrick Henry stood in front of Virginia, which was the largest, most organized colony at the time in their government, and implored them to get involved in the fight. And he used techniques of debate and techniques of rhetoric to be able to impassion them to stand up and look at the facts. And so I want to remind everybody, one of the big things here that we want to talk about is critical thinking. And I think this is one of the most famous speeches. We're not going to go through the whole thing because it is kind of long for our show for today, but I would love to. And I invite you to look up this speech and read it, because when you read the entire thing, it's moving, even to this day.
And Heather, I feel like this generation, and I may be wrong, maybe I'm just not getting the whole picture, but there seems to be a loss of passion for our country. I just don't see it as much as I used to. There used to be this desire to learn about our country and to know things about our country. And, I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's this huge group of people that has this passion out there still. So thank you for bringing this to us today and reigniting our American passion.
Absolutely. So Patrick Henry stands up to say this at the gathering of many of our founding fathers in Virginia at the St. John's Church. And the people that had just spoken right before him were arguing in support of staying loyal, despite the fact that the king had refused to hear the olive branch petition despite the fact that 30,000 paid mercenaries were on our shores to bring us back into subjugation.
So he was speaking to a group of people that did not agree with him.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So here we go. No man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very worthy gentlemen who have just addressed the House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope it will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen if, entertaining as I do, opinions of a character very opposite to theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery, and in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be the freedom of the debate. It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and of an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above earthly kings. Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us all into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be of the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not, the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost me, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst of it, and to provide for it. He goes on to share about the evidence that they have to prove his argument. He asks those that have an opposing view that should stay loyal and hold out hope that King George will turn his eye back to the colonists and embrace them as citizens of England. He asks them what evidence they have to support that. And then he lays out the evidence that is observable of the enemy armies that are on their doorstep, of the ships that are in their harbors, of the taxes and of the actions and of the rhetoric of the king. And he asks with observable and not hearsay evidence to exemplify that hope is lost at this point in regard to imagining that the king is going to open his arms back to the colonies. And then he lays out the actions that they have taken to try to resolve this issue with the king. He brings up the petition that was thrown to the side by the king. He brings up the different parties that had been sent across the sea to speak and present to the king. He talks about the different efforts that they have made to appeal to his better judgment. And this is how he finishes it up. They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemies shall have us bound hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed in our power. 3 million people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as that which we possess, are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone, it is to the vigilant, to the active, and to the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged, their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, God Almighty. I know not what course others may take. But as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
Oh, I just love that. That was beautiful.
That's what started our country, man. You know, the debate started our country. Disagreement started our country. Our country was founded on the ideas of different people coming together, and we're going to go forward in our next section and talk about the different elements that he used of strong, healthy, logical debate and the techniques that he used. But never once did he slander the opposing party that had just spoken before him. In fact, he speaks to them as sir and gentlemen. And if you read it, it kind of gets repetitive in the middle of his speech, how many times he says sir, to be respectful to those that have an opposing view, even though he feels so strongly about it. But what calls to me is that we are always going to be a nation where we have different ideas.
We're built on that.
Exactly. That's our founding principle, is that we have people that come here for religious freedom. We have people that come here for the freedom to live how they want, to live how they see fit, and without fear of being stepped on because of that. But that has to go across all parties.
Yeah.
And the only way to be able to do that is to respect that you and I may not agree, but I'm going to call you sir, and I'm going to call you ma'am, and I'm going to see that even though we disagree, we are kindred spirits and that we're human.
We're human.
We're human. And more than that, we're Americans.
Amen.
And look at the things, and that's what he rooted into, was these men may have believed and held out hope that the king was going to turn his eye and that he was going to embrace America again. But he still leveled with them on what they agreed upon, which was the country and the people that they lived next to and that they loved, whether they agreed or disagreed.
I had this conversation with my husband not too long ago, and after a very intense world news session and lots of emotions, and I said, if you look across the street, she's not our enemy. She's our fellow American.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can view the people on our street and the people on the next street and the people in our community as our people, it makes it a little easier to be compassionate. Ultimately, I think we all want the same thing.
Absolutely. So that's the reframe. A Berean breakdown and a birthday tribute. Happy birthday, America. And to all of you Americans listening out there, happy birthday to the country that we love. That's brought to you by Midwest Psychiatric Associates. Call them at 417-262-6609 or go to psychiatryhelps.com to schedule a free 15-minute consult. All right, so we're going to go straight into off-the-couch conversations, because we had some amazing questions that were discussed online on social media outlets, and I really want to get time for that. So today's show is supported by Awaken 360's Y groups. Awaken 360 takes counseling beyond the couch by empowering our future generations with the skills to overcome mental struggle by implementing preventative approaches, educating good mental health habits, community service and collaboration, while supporting students in their pursuit of secondary education through community-supported scholarships. Parents and guardians, you can register youth ages 12 to 18 in Awaken 360 Y groups at awaken360.org. If you'd like to inquire about volunteering to lead a crew, please call Jessica at 417-889-5483. All right, well, welcome to Off the Couch Conversations, everybody. This is a relatable conversational segment inspired by real questions and listener submissions. It explores life's everyday dilemmas through reflective prompts, offering perspective, validation, and practical insight. No therapy couch required. To be a part of the conversation, please email your questions to Heather and Jenny at contact@awaken360.org, or jump on Facebook and communicate with us through our page, CBC, on 92.3 Kick FM. All right, so Off the Couch Conversations is proudly supported by Backyard Pyro, which is in Southwest Missouri. They are a premier year-round climate-controlled fireworks showroom. They're located in Rogersville, Missouri, proudly serving the entire Springfield, Ozark, Nixa, Republic, Rogersville, and Stratford areas.
That's a lot of areas.
Skip the seasonal roadside tents and browse their massive selection of high-quality consumer fireworks in comfort. Their air-conditioned brick-and-mortar store is open year-round. You can shop online and pick up in-store, my favorite feature, and come browse their shelves. Come see for yourself why they make customers drive from across the Midwest to buy from them, because they blow away the competition everywhere else. Shop from the comfort of your home or take advantage of their low prices. They have tons of products to choose from, most with performance videos online so you can see what you're getting. They love to answer questions, so make sure you call or text them at 417-227-0291 or visit them on Facebook. They have those fancy little timers. My brother's all into that because he's a nerd and a pyromaniac, which is, why he has this. But they have those fancy little timers that you hook everything up with, and you just flip a switch, and he's got this
Really?
every time he comes over to my house and does the whole thing, he's got this cool little switchboard. I'm like, Jason, you look like you're about to like set a bomb off, which technically he is.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's
I'm excited about that. I've already sent 2 people over there this morning, Heather.
sweet.
Because wives, let your husbands blow up their money. I've gotten 2 calls this morning from people I love very much, and the complaint is the same.
Oh goodness.
That they don't want to see their money blown up, and boys have to be boys sometimes, ladies, and you have to support that sometimes, and this is that time of year. So if you're going to support it here.
Well, go see my big brother. He's the owner of Backyard Pyro and his beautiful wife, and they will absolutely help you out. They're good people. I'm a little biased, but it's true. All right,
Well, you're good people, Heather, so I think we can trust that.
So the discussion on Facebook that got it got hundreds of comments on it, several likes, shares. A lot of people responded with it, and it seemed to really resound with them.
I'm excited about this, Heather. I've been kind of away from my social media, not on purpose, just because I've been busy. So
neglectful.
I know I've been neglectful of my social media.
All right. So the question was, when it comes to building healthy families, who comes first, the kids or your spouse?
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's a big one.
So before we go into
I can't
this,
wait to hear these responses.
Oh, we had answers, I'm sure you can imagine, from all across the board. So we're going to go into some of those answers and read, directly from our Facebook of what was said. So that
This will be fun, Heather.
Yeah, you can kind of get a feel for what the community said. But before we dive into it, I always like to frame, when I know that we're about to have a bit of a debate or discussion, general rules of good, healthy debate and good things to look for. It's really good when you're going into a conversation, whenever you know that there's likely to be a disagreement, to be able to look for signs of defensiveness, look for signs that the argument is starting to spiral and go off track, because you're not going to resolve or produce anything good when you start going into those elements. So it's good to put a stop when you see those warning signs and move in a different direction or put a pause on that one. So
tell me, Heather, is there a right or wrong answer to this question?
Yes, there's a wrong or right answer to this question. And I
agree.
say that because there's a lot of research that backs up one over the other.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of negative outcomes in research that's been longitudinal studies that have been done over decades and decades and decades to exemplify this. So it wasn't just a one-off research project.
This is not an opinion situation.
No.
This is a fact-based situation.
Yeah, and I'm going to give some resources for those that are listening that may have engaged in this conversation online, so that you can go out and do your own research. Don't ever take my word for it. Just go out and do your own homework. This is the homework I did real quick to kind of give you some resources, but don't ever just trust other people's words for it. Go out and do your own. But good.
I'm looking at these answers, Heather.
I know. We're gonna get
These
into
are great.
Pause. We're gonna get in. Let's set some really good rules for good, healthy debate. First, it's okay to get passionate. It's okay to get emotional, as long as it comes back and it stays on topic. It stays factual, logical, and respectful. As long
That
as
is mostly good news for me, Heather.
Yeah, if we're staying within that, if we're staying within those lines, you have all the ingredients that you need to be able to hear one another, listen to one another, and stay on topic and stay on target.
And you have to be open to hearing these kind of things.
Yeah, and remember your priorities. What's most important? So signs of unhealthy debate. If you were in a debate contest, these are things that you would lose points for.
Okay.
So these are really good things to listen to whenever you're listening to the news or you're listening to a public speaker or a debate. These are really good things to listen to. So when you hear, it's a Latin term called ad hominem. It means attacking the person, not the point. So that tells you that the person who's presenting that argument has nothing else to stand on. They have no other evidence to refute your point. And so now they have to just attack you because they can't attack the argument, which tells you that you just won. In a debate, if you see that happen, you just won the debate. Straw man, they change the subject to deflect the focus from the fact that they have no rebuttal to the point made. So they start pulling at all sorts of different things that are off topic because they can't stay on topic because they have nothing to stand on there. Manufacturing false dilemmas. They go into absolute or black and white thinking. We talked about that as a faulty belief. If you don't support this policy, you clearly don't care about the environment. And you go from one very small disagreement to a major extreme. Well, you don't care about children.
Not at all.
And then the last one that I'll give you is they move the goalpost, which means that they just change the standard by which we have evidence. When you have successfully refuted an argument, the other person will arbitrarily demand new and increasingly difficult standards of proof to keep from accepting that they've been proven wrong.
Right. I love those debates.
So we're going to take a hard break for just a moment. We're going to check out the news and weather. We'll be right back with Off the Couch Conversations to discuss some of those points. All right, welcome back to Awaken 360's Counseling Beyond the Couch. Awaken 360 is a trauma-specialized therapy center utilizing effective treatments such as trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, and EMDR. You can schedule with Awaken 360 specialist trauma therapist by calling 417-889-5483 or jump online and schedule at awaken360.org. So let's get into the responses.
Oh man, I'm reading these, Heather, and they're great.
Good.
These are great. Can I read you some?
Yeah, let's tag team it. Go back and forth. You start.
Okay. I'm going to read you my favorite. Well, I have two favorites, but I'll start with "The dog comes first." That's a
That one made me smile. Honestly, like, to me, I read that because that was in the midst of like a lot of disagreements. So to me, I read that as like here's some comedic relief. The dog comes first.
I love those in the comments. Like, I look for that, and when I can't find it, I go ahead and become that. But no, I love that.
Right?
The dog comes first.
That was comedic relief. It was getting
I've
a little
got a
tense.
pretty cute dog, Heather, and I gotta say, sometimes I feel like my husband chooses her over me.
Oh, snap. All right, what's your other favorite, Jenny?
Oh, I think this one's my absolute favorite. Choose the kids. I can always get a new spouse.
Yes.
This individual is certainly on their way to getting a new spouse.
Right. My husband read that and he goes, hey, Heather, guess what? I can always get a new spouse. I was like, you want to die today, right?
Right. Marriage is work, and the second marriage is going to be even more work because you're coming with baggage. So
right. So we'll start from the top and we'll go back and forth. Spouse, I love my kids and my relationship with them is so important, but my kids will leave. They grow and they build their own families, and when they're gone, I'm left with just being my husband and I. I don't want him to be a stranger when that happens, and I also want to exemplify a healthy and happy marriage to my children.
Okay, I got one. Kids didn't ask to be born. Adults made a choice to bring them into the world. How one can consider a scenario in which the kids are not the first priority is beyond me. They're literally helpless for a good part of their lives and need plenty of guidance transitioning into adulthood. You, ma'am, may end up lonely later.
No, Jenny. No. But I do, I think, zooming out for a moment, I think every one of these brings up a really great point. This is a hard question, I think, sometimes, because you got to come out from the perspective of the person writing it. What if you've been in a situation where you observed abusive situations, right, where the parents were neglectful of the children? Yeah, at that point, that's going to make me err on the opposite side and want to be like, no, parents can take care of themselves. Kids are
right. It is your job to protect them.
Exactly. So no, I think when I read all of these, I thought, man, you all have some really great points. And what I see is that it speaks from your probable personal experience.
And your perspective from that experience,
right,
for sure.
So, every single one of these, the dog comes first, the comedic relief, I can always get a new spouse. I mean, technically, yeah, you're right. Your children are literally the outcome from your own body. And your spouse, technically, you could just trade them out and trade them in like shoes and socks, I guess. I wouldn't recommend it, and we're going to go into why, but not every single one of, most of these have some pretty good answers in them.
I know when I had my children, mm-hmm, I experienced a love, as most parents do, mm-hmm, that I had never experienced before.
Yeah.
And it's such a deep love that it's hard to see yourself choosing your spouse, yeah, over this love, because it's such a beautiful and different type of love. So joking aside, I do get both sides of the conversation.
Absolutely. My ex was a 3-letter word that's not so nice. I was tied to him by a piece of paper.
You're saying a comment, right?
I am, right here.
Okay, I'm like, you don't have an ex.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, my ex was a 3-letter word that was not so nice. I was tied to him by a piece of paper. My children are blood. They came first. Next comment was, right now our kids come first. We were first before they were born. and will be first again after, but I think when you decide to have children, they should come first always. I can identify with that. My husband and I were together for 8 years before we had children, and those 8 years were great. We didn't have to share our attention. It was just the two of us. Now, granted, I was going through grad school for 6.5, 7 of those.
Oh yeah, he shared you.
Right? We didn't really see each other very often because of work and school, but that being aside, it was just the two of us that had to juggle that, not us juggling that with kids, so it can make it hard. So I can identify with that.
And I come from the
sentiment.
opposite spectrum of that. My husband and I were very young when we got married. We were very young when we had children, and we were an instant family immediately.
Yeah.
And we never had that space. Well, we're having it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we never had that space in the beginning where we built that. We were
built
just
that foundation.
immediately
Yeah.
a family.
In a healthy family, kids first, the spouse will be on the same page. Any adult who would feed, clothe, or believe an adult over a child is not someone I personally would want in my family. That makes me wonder, especially the believe an adult over a child. That's a tough one. I know I've worked in a lot of child abuse cases where the kids came to mom or dad about some things that were happening with a boyfriend or a significant other, and it wasn't believed. So I would imagine if that was in my personal background, I would err in the I would lean in the same way.
Oh, for
as this
sure,
person.
for sure. Like you said, Heather, these are different perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like some of these are coming from some very painful perspectives.
Possibly. Yeah.
And of course, we don't want, or I'll speak for me and not for you, but I don't want to see a parent choosing an abusive spouse, an abusive
Mm-hmm.
parent over their child. That's not, I believe,
Sure.
what we're talking about here. That
No.
kind of, I don't think that's where the question was going.
Right.
Just.
But we are going to address that.
Right, for
Yeah,
sure.
we are going to address that. So, spouse, you're one, and both prioritize your kids together. Next comment was God first, your spouse second, and the kids third. And then I'll go into these last two. I put this one last for a reason. So I'll read this one. Or Jenny, do you want to read this one, and then I'll read that last
Sure.
one?
So this listener says, this is a nuanced question. In some marriages, the kids are the married people's full-blood children. This is different than a blended family where there are stepchildren involved, as well as biological. No one should be treated any differently in a perfect world, but it happens unfortunately. In a family where everyone is related, maybe spouse first as long as both people are treating the kids with the same diligence and care. In a situation where you're choosing a step-parent, I say kids first to make sure they're a safe person for your kids. Kids are vulnerable and need that prioritization. Once you're committed and ideally both all in to raise all the children, biological step, then it can go back to the spouse, but maybe not until I don't disagree with that. I think when you're choosing a life partner
Mm-hmm.
and you have a child involved in that choice,
Mm-hmm.
that you do have to take that into account. And blended families are hard. I am a blended family, and as much as you don't want, all my children, I love them the same.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're young and your relationship is young, it would be ignorant to say that there's no bias there. It would just be ignorant. But you have to recognize it to be able to move forward.
Yeah.
And
Definitely
and
a foothold for
Yeah.
question.
for sure.
It'll bring up a question that you wouldn't necessarily have to face if all the children were biologically both the husband and the wife's.
Right.
So it brings up a question mark. So you already hit the dog comes first, and then the trade up on the new spouse.
How cute is the dog?
Right. So the last one I found to be rather interesting, just because I love debate, and so there's a lot of assumptions in this one that might be indicative of this person's bias. And the debate on a side of me, goes, okay, we used a lot of those previous techniques because we don't have facts to back this up, but that's okay. That this shows where this person's mindset is coming from.
Okay.
And so the quote goes, a lot of people were raised in homes that subscribe to the focus on the family, James Dobson style parenting. Evangelical churches preached that stuff as doctrine from the pulpit, and that's where all these responses that are choosing a spouse over the children comes from. Those teachings were extremely harmful and resulted in widespread child and spousal abuse stemming from the authoritarian style of parenting and partnership that they pushed, placing ultimate authority with the man over the family. People have just accepted these principles without weighing them within their own minds. It's insane to choose the welfare of an adult over the needs of children, and no decent human being would ever come to the conclusions otherwise without being brainwashed by religious lunatics. So, a couple things that this brings up to me, we talked about signs of good, healthy debate, and then we talked about signs that the debate is starting to spiral because we don't have facts. So I'm not going, as a person who teaches parenting classes, as a professional who would lead or guide parents on how to respond and how to build healthy relationships. It's kind of my job. When I have faith-based clients that come in, obviously we root into not just science, but we also root into biblical principles. So for today, especially since this person has brought up evangelical teachings, I'm going to keep that completely out. I'm not going to reference biblical teaching at all. I'm just going to stick with secular facts purely. That have been studies that have been done, not by any, I did find a study that was done by Focus on the Family. I'm not even going to bring that up. So I'm going to stick all my resources and all my evidence that I'm going to bring to the table as resources for the public, and I'm going to put them only into secular sets. So I brought in a longitudinal study. This study was done in 2024, May 20th, and it cites studies that have been done since the 1970s. Now, longitudinal studies are amazing for family planning because you get to see changes across the board and how the family dynamic affects the family and the children from pre-birth to birth all the way up to the moment that they fly the roost. And you get to see the impacts, and then you get to compare them to other family dynamics where you have that long 18 plus year process to be able to see what the impacts were. Now but one of the downsides is you have confounding variables. So if you're in science and you do research, confounding variables are variables that you can't control for, right? And so obviously that's going to have caveats to the studies, but that's why you have multiple different sets. You have a big sample size, and then you can also reference your results with other studies that were maybe short-term studies. So this was done by the Institute for Family Studies. That is an institute that is a secular institute in nature. They're not faith-based. And so their research is not going to necessarily be confounded by the biblical perspective. And one of the things that they found from a longitudinal study was that across every marker that they had in place, on average, growing in a married parent household is better for children's later life outcomes across all markers. Now, some of those markers may have been by 4%, some of those markers may have been as much as 20%, but overall, every single one of those outcomes, and they looked at children in elementary, their ability to read, their ability to understand math concepts was much faster and much stronger than children that were growing up in households where you had either divorce occurring on a multiple standard, or if you had single family households or single parent households. And so that was one. It was that they, on average, by the time they reached 30, they were able to make more money and have more stability in their jobs across the board. And so if you look at this study, I'm looking at the bar graph right now, and I'll post this online too. You can see some of these are by more than 10%, some are by more than 20% on some of the difference. And this went all the way up into adulthood post 30 years old.
Does it say why, Heather?
So as they go back, they compare subgroups. They even tried to address, different things such as race or location in our country. And even then, we still saw the same thing play out. It didn't matter race, it didn't matter socioeconomic status. As long as you had a two-parent household, the children performed better across all spectrums.
Yeah.
So, and then these findings are in accord with another study that found that not just the two-parent household, but the family structure itself was one of the strongest indicators of relative intergenerational mobility for children, which means that the children are able to go further than the parents were able to economically, emotionally, and with structural integrity and soundness in their life. And so that's
kids are so smart.
Yes.
They know when they're turning one against the other. They know that if they go ask mom, that she's going to overrule dad.
Yeah.
They know that, and I think they put a lot of energy into that once they can see how to manipulate. Maybe it's not intentional as a child, but
sure.
And maybe they're not focusing on in other areas where they should be growing. Is that possible?
Maybe.
I'm asking that question. Like, it seems possible to me that the kids become so focused on getting what they want through
Well,
that
I mean,
means
there's
that
a technique on that called triangulation, and kids will use it. I mean, they use it in, my kids use it against me and my husband. It's like, if they go to dad and they know that dad's going to say yes to more screen time, and they know mom is more likely to say no, which that's the case sometimes,
right.
Then it's going to be dad, hands down, every single time. And so, then it has the potential of causing an argument. If I come in and they're on the screens again, I look at my husband and go, hey, why is my kids on the screen? Why are they on there again? And he's like, well, I didn't realize that they'd already had screen time. Okay. All right, so you guys have 10 minutes or 20-minute bonus time. You got dad bonus time.
And what a wonderful way to handle that, Heather, because that could have went the other way. You supported Shane.
Right, absolutely.
Maybe not later. Maybe behind closed doors you gave him a good scolding. But your kids saw you support your husband.
Right.
And I think that situation speaks volumes to the original question.
Sure.
So I'm really an advocate. My grandkids do it to me.
Triangulation is rough.
Yeah.
It is rough, yeah. Absolutely. Some other resources for you guys would be Psychology Today did some publications on the center of the universe effect. And they found that making children the centerpiece of a family's universe is not healthy. It has outcomes of fostering entitlement in children, gives them an unrealistic view of how adult relationships should function. And Psychology Today is definitely a secular viewpoint. Right. They're not going to be one to hold to biblical standards. Benefits to the kids: children are more likely to thrive when surrounded by strong, secure marital relationships. Observing their parents' mutual affection, respect, and conflict resolution provides a blueprint for their own future relationships. And then I'm going to skip this one because that was focused on the family in Canada. But the Institute for Family Studies that we just talked about said it highlights that preserving marital cohesion translates to higher intergenerational mobility and greater academic and emotional success for children long term, all the way up to their post-30s.
So, Heather, I really love the way that you went away from the religious aspect here. It seems like in the question there's some anger and maybe
Possibly.
a situation and a perspective that's caused that, and you brought the facts. So I just kind of wanted to bring attention to that. I know we're on a certain subject, but also in in debate, like you've done that so well. I read this question, and I am ready to argue until I consider these things.
Sure.
So you have addressed him with facts there, and I love that, and you've remained respectful.
Yeah, I mean, I think in debate you have to have some empathy and not take things so personally. Oftentimes think of debate like an empty slate, and when somebody starts kind of falling into those ad hominem and attacking you because they can't stand on evidence, then, think about it like a caged animal in a corner. When somebody's in a corner and they have nothing else to hold on to, they're going to start lashing out, and you can't take that personally. So if you're in a situation where you have a disagreement with other people and they can't go into fact, they can't go into research, they can't go into studies and evidence, back off a little bit, because you don't want to push them into a corner. Because at the end of the day, the priority is, this is a person. How would you feel if you were in a corner? You'd lash out too.
And, you're planting seeds in this moment.
Right.
And seeds that, aren't just going to sprout up right there in that debate, but they may later. Mm-hmm. And same on the opposite side, So I've definitely had seeds planted in my brain that grew later.
Yeah. We'll be back here in just a second. I want to give you a couple more facts on this other side of it and resources, but let's go into a short commercial break. Have you ever felt like you're capable of more, but you're not quite sure what's holding you back? That's why I'm excited to tell you about Awaken 360. It's focused on helping people break through limitations, gain clarity, and create real transformation in their lives. Whether you're looking to grow personally, professionally, or simply become the best version of yourself, Awaken 360 provides the tools, guidance, and community to help you get there. What I love, it's not just about motivation, it's about taking action. Through powerful programs, expert coaching, and practical strategies, Awaken 360 helps you build confidence, develop a growth mindset, and create lasting results. If you're ready to stop settling and start stepping into your full potential, now's the time to take the next step. Visit awaken360.org today and discover what's possible when you invest in yourself.
One of the biggest challenges young people face today isn't a lack of talent. It's a lack of connection, confidence, and support. 40% of adolescents report experiencing loneliness. The Surgeon General's 2023 advisory reported a roughly 70% decline in social interaction with friends over the past 2 decades. 61% of young people say loneliness negatively affects their mental health, and more than 1/3 say it disrupts their daily lives. We've never been more connected to devices and less connected to people. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Awaken 360's Wake Up Initiative youth groups. I am so excited about this. Designed specifically for teens ages 12 to 18, these groups create safe and encouraging space where young people can build confidence, develop leadership skills, strengthen communication, and learn how to navigate life challenges with purpose and resilience. Through engaging discussions, mentorship, goal setting, and meaningful peer connections, students gain practical tools that can help them succeed not only in school, but in life. They learn how to make positive choices, overcome obstacles, and discover the strengths that already exist within them. That's so beautiful. In a world full of pressure and distractions, every young person deserves a community that believes in their potential and helps them grow into the leaders they're meant to be. If you're a parent, educator, community leader, or even a teen looking for a place to grow, connect, and be inspired, learn more about this program at Awaken 360's Wake Up Initiative youth groups today. Because the future isn't built by chance, it's built by young people who are equipped, empowered, and ready to lead. That's the mission of Awaken 360's Wake Up Initiative youth groups.
Woohoo!
I'm excited about those.
Me too. So back to some results. So a couple things that were pointed out in here that I want to kind of get into for a few moments, which is the last comment talked about how
You're a lunatic?
Well, religious lunatics pushing settings that are leading to widespread child and spousal abuse, right? So it's the idea that building your marriage and ensuring that your marriage is healthy first is negative and detrimental to your children. Well, the results and the statistics on crime that are reported by the FBI say a different story. According to the FBI, spanning studies from 2020 to 2024, current or ex-boyfriend and girlfriend accounted for the vast majority, which was 54.4% of domestic relationship violence in cases like rape. So that's 54.4%.
That's a big number.
Yes. Research on domestic disputes indicates that over 80% of intimate partner violence incidents involve dating partners rather than spouses.
These are big facts.
Yes, the RAINN statistics show that 60% of all rapes are committed by an acquaintance or an intimate partner, with boyfriends making up the distinct proportion of that demographic, not spouses. So if the argument is that marriages and putting your marriage and developing healthy marriages comes first, and that's detrimental to the children, these statistics would argue against that having different intimate partners in the home that don't have that construct of building that healthy dynamic, building that healthy framework with which to bring your children up is actually more negative to your children than taking the time to build that strong foundation, build that healthy relationship. Some of the points that were brought up were perfect. You have to ensure that your priorities are in alignment with this person that you're connecting your life with. And I could go into some more statistics, but I think we kind of made our point. But I would encourage that this person look at the statistics on reports of child perpetrators and who is the demographic that is oftentimes the perpetrator of those child abuse situations, specifically when we're talking about like CAC cases that we have to take over to the Child Advocacy Center for forensic interviews. Oftentimes, those are people that are close to the family that know the child that are in the home. And so, zooming out for just a moment, I want to really kind of take home this analogy. A lot of people get boundaries mixed up, and boundaries are of the utmost importance when you're dating, or when, let's say that you're a divorced situation and you're trying to date and you already have children and you're wanting to see if you can bring this next person into the home. Boundaries are of particular importance, and there's nothing more valuable than your children and you are more precious than diamonds. Your children are more precious than diamonds. And so to illustrate this story, I always like to tell this story from when my husband and I were in college. We had this opportunity. We were dirt poor, like cents or maybe dollars in our bank account. And a friend of ours asked us to go to Chicago with them for the St. Pat's Parade. So we figured out a way to scrounge up some money, rented this nasty very sketchy and scary hotel, and, along the mile. And we drove out, carpooled out to Chicago, and we get there. And, it's hot. It's St. Pat's. It's been crowded. The city is flooded by millions of people. It's so crowded that you have to find the frat boy to follow behind just to be able to get through the crowds.
Right.
And so, you're sweaty, you're gross, you're dirty. We finally, we make our way back from the parade going over to downtown, and we walk by Tiffany's. And I've never been in Tiffany's. I grew up loving Audrey Hepburn, watching Breakfast at Tiffany's. And my husband and our friends were like, let's go inside. I'm like, no, there's no way in heck I'm going inside Tiffany's right now just like this. No, they're going to kick me out. And so we go in, and, Tiffany's...
They drug you in anyway.
Right, they did. They drugged me, and I was not wanting to go. But we go in, and guys, these people knew exactly what they had in there. I mean, when you go into Tiffany's, it's gorgeous. There's the blue silk hanging from the ceiling. I mean, they take care of the space. The building is immaculate, not to mention the diamonds inside. The building's immaculate. But if I had gone in there and been disrespectful, if I had gone in there and been like, oh, Haunty, like I can, it's very clear and evident that I cannot afford a single thing in this store. Right. But because of how we went in, we were respectful. They were willing to drop their boundaries, and I got to try on bracelets that were tens of thousands of dollars. I got to try on rings that were more expensive than my current house. And the house prices right now.
Right.
Like, I got to try on, and it was because I was so respectful when I went in. And they could tell I was very timid. And I felt like a fish out of water. And they were so nice to me. And my experience at Tiffany's was not what I expected it to be. Certainly was not what my experience was at a jewelry store that's in Battlefield Mall when I was dirt broke. But these people were kind to me because of my boundaries. And I want you to use the same analogy with boundaries of your home. You're right, ladies. Your children are absolutely important. And when you're dating or when you're trying to find a spouse, and you're wanting to bring them into the home, do not let the fox into the chicken coop.
Absolutely.
Like, you have a requirement at that point to recognize your own value. You are more precious than those diamonds in that store. And ladies, they had armed guards at Tiffany's. I'm just saying, they had armed guards dressed in tuxedos at Tiffany's. If I had walked in acting all chump, they would have kicked me out. Right? So have some boundaries, have some expectations. Expect the best. You deserve the best. Don't date a boy. I'm just saying, don't date a man-child. I'm just saying.
And maybe 2 weeks in is not the time to introduce him to your children and start having them call him dad. That's just, maybe not appropriate. Do you have an opinion on what the appropriate time frame is before they meet children?
I don't know time frame, but my children are the most important thing to me. I'd lay down my life. I'd stop breathing if it was required for them. And so take that. Your children should come first when it comes to dating and meeting people that you don't know. You absolutely have a requirement to protect them because you're right, they are vulnerable. But even before you have children, we know what the birds and the bees leads to. Yeah. So if you are aligning yourself and you've let the fox into the chicken coop and you don't know who that fox is, you don't know what he's like, you don't know what his priorities are like, and then you get pregnant, I'm sorry, ladies, but you already let him in and you already let him have access and you already put somebody else that is a stranger before your future children. Yeah. And the goal is, yes, you build your marriage, you build your relationship with your partner, and you make sure that that's solid, just like you build a house. You have standards, you have expectations, you have a framework when you pour that concrete, and you make sure that it's solid. You do not move people in when your foundation is rickety. So do not have children in a house that's about to fall apart. And that's the whole dynamic, and that's what I want you to picture. That is what we mean when we say you have to put your marriage and relationship first. Because if you're not, you are neglecting that house. And it's going to become one of those houses that's up for demolition, but yet you're moving your children into it. It's not safe, it's not sound, it's not secure. Make sure that your house is in order. Make sure that your home is in order and your relationship is secure and safe. Whether it is before you've had children, because again, birds and the bees equal kids. Right. So make sure that your future children are protected by aligning yourself with somebody that is on the same page as you, has the same priorities, loves the same way that you do. Love should be sacrificial. Make sure they're willing to sacrifice for you.
For sure. And I think it's important we say we're not just talking to the ladies. No. We're talking to the guys too. And I'll just take a quick second. I used to do this with the older boys in a group. I read an article. There was a 5-year-old girl found brutally murdered on the side of the road. What it ended up being is her mother and her boyfriend had murdered this child, or the boyfriend had murdered the child.
God, that's scary.
And the mother was complicit in dumping her body. This happened despite the fact that the father had been going to court for 5 years. For 5 years, he had been fighting for full custody of this child. Side note, luckily in the world, in Missouri, the Missouri law is 50-50 now, so fathers don't have to fight the way they used to, but this father fought and he kept losing in court, and then ended up finding his daughter died. But here's the one line of that article that still brings me goosebumps, and I would just reiterate to those boys. The father described the mother of his child as a one-night stand.
Oh, no.
So who are you hopping?
Yeah, who are you aligning yourself with?
Who are you aligning yourself with?
Be careful.
And do you want them to be the parent of your child? And if you can think along those lines, past your hormones, past all the butterflies and things like that, are you looking at a person that you want to be the parent of your child? And if you've known them for 45 minutes, the answer to that is probably no.
Yeah.
So
in answer to this question, you are putting your children first by putting your marriage first.
yeah,
That is
absolutely.
the easiest answer. By putting your relationship first, making sure that your foundation is solid, you are putting your children first.
Absolutely.
So that is the end. I hope that brought some fun discussions, and I hope that brought some good answers. I do encourage you to do your own homework, your own research into the statistics. But we want to thank our sponsors today. We want to thank you for being a part of Counseling Beyond the Couch, and we'll sign off with Happy Birthday, America.
Happy birthday, America.
Enjoy your 4th.
Thank you for listening to Awaken 360's Counseling Beyond the Couch with Heather Freeman, LPC, and Jenny Sodai, LPN. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel for the newest updates and programs. We are launching our 360 groups for ages 12 to 18. To learn more and register a student or to volunteer to be a group lead, go to www.awaken360.org. Remember to email contact@awaken360.org or message us on Facebook to ask any questions or share your own stories. Until next week, you have a purpose, you're here on purpose, and truth will set you free to achieve that purpose.